My son called a random number, crying help. My mom's unconscious, but he just reached his billionaire father who never knew he existed. He's yours, Naomi said without preamble, her hospital gown a stark contrast to the fire in her eyes. I assume you've figured that out. Reed Westbrook, billionaire CEO of a global tech empire, felt the ground shift beneath him. Why didn't you tell me? 6 years, Naomi. 6 years of his life I've missed. I was going to tell you that day, she whispered, pain etching lines around her mouth. I had just found out I was pregnant. I came to surprise you. What day? You never came. You just disappeared. I was there, Reed. Her voice hardened. March 15th. I saw you with Victoria in your office, pressed against your desk, her lips on yours. I saw everything I needed to see. Reed's world tilted on its axis as the memory crashed back. A celebratory kiss from his head of international relations. Unwanted, immediately rebuffed, and completely forgotten until this moment. A meaningless incident that had cost him 6 years with his son. It wasn't what you thought, he said, desperation edging his voice. That kiss meant nothing. It meant everything to me, Naomi countered, tears welling. Because in that moment, I realized I was just another conquest for Reed Westbrook. And our child deserved better than to be an afterthought in his father's busy life. Have you ever had a single misunderstanding that altered the entire course of your life? A moment where what you saw and what was real were two completely different things. Today's story is about how one glimpse through a doorway cost a family 6 years together, and the extraordinary journey that began when a 5-year-old boy dialed the one number his mother had warned him never to call. Thank you, my amazing viewers, for helping Timeless Love Tales grow beyond 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to me. Each like, comment, and share has brought us to this milestone together. I pray that God blesses you abundantly in every area of your life, that you find strength in your struggles, peace in your storms, and joy in your journey. May your homes be filled with love, your hearts with purpose, and your lives with meaningful connections. As we continue to explore these stories of redemption and second chances together, I pray you experience the same grace and restoration in your own relationships. Thank you for being part of this growing family. Your presence here is a blessing I don't take for granted. Here's to many more stories that touch our hearts and remind us of what truly matters. I'm Mr. Harrison, and this is Timeless Love Tales. The first time Elijah Parker dialed a number for help, he had no idea he was about to change 3 lives forever. At 5 years old, Elijah was remarkably self-sufficient for his age. He had to be. His mother, Naomi, had raised him alone since birth, working 2 jobs to provide for them in their modest apartment on the outskirts of Westbrook City. She taught him early what to do in emergencies, how to call 911, how to recite their address, and most importantly, how to reach her at work. But on that rainy Tuesday afternoon in October, none of those numbers helped. His mother lay unconscious on their kitchen floor, her breathing shallow, her skin alarmingly pale. The storm had knocked out service in their neighborhood, and when he tried her workplace, no one answered. Panic rising in his chest, Elijah did something he'd never done before. He reached for his mother's phone and scrolled through her contacts. Most names meant nothing to him, but one entry caught his eye. Do not call RW. Something about those capital letters, that warning, made his small finger hover over the number. In his 5-year-old mind, a number his mother had specifically labeled not to call must be important. Important enough to help. With trembling hands, he pressed the call button. 3 miles away, in the penthouse office of Westbrook Tower, Reed Westbrook was concluding a billion-dollar acquisition when his private line rang. He glanced at the screen, instantly recognizing the number he hadn't seen in nearly 6 years. Naomi Parker, the woman who had disappeared from his life without explanation. The woman who had never returned his calls, his messages, his desperate attempts to understand what had gone wrong. Excuse me, gentlemen, he said to the executives gathered around his conference table, his heart suddenly racing. I need to take this. Reed stepped to the window. The city skyline spread before him like a kingdom. At 42, He had built Westbrook Innovations from a startup in his garage to a global technology empire. His face graced magazine covers. His name appeared on lists of the world's wealthiest individuals. What he didn't have, what he had lost when Naomi vanished, was the only person who had ever seen beyond his wealth to the man beneath. "Naomi?" he answered, unable to keep the question from his voice. The silence on the other end lasted just long enough for him to consider hanging up. Then came a small, frightened voice. "Hello? Please help. My mom won't wake up." Reed's world tilted on its axis. A child. A small child using Naomi's phone. "Who is this?" he asked, though a part of him already knew, already was calculating the years, the months, the possibility that had never occurred to him until this moment. "Elijah Parker. My mom is on the floor and she won't wake up and the phones aren't working and I don't know what to do." The words tumbled out in a rush, punctuated by a sob that sounded painfully young. "Okay, Elijah. Take a deep breath." Reed's mind shifted into the same problem-solving mode that had built his empire. "Where are you?" "Apartment 4B, 1720 Oakwood Drive." Reed was already moving, signaling to his assistant as he headed for the door. "I'm going to help you, Elijah. Stay on the line." "Is your mom breathing?" "Yes, but it sounds funny. And she's really pale." "Does she have any medical conditions? Anything she takes medicine for?" Pause. "She has the sugar thing. Diabetes. She wears a bracelet." Reed's pace quickened as he reached the private elevator. "Good, that's very helpful. I'm sending an ambulance right now, and I'm on my way too. Can you unlock your front door?" "Mom says not to open the door for strangers." "That's very smart of your mom. You don't have to open it. Just unlock it so the paramedics can get in when they arrive." As his driver pulled the Bentley around, Reed maintained a steady conversation with the frightened boy, asking questions about his mother's condition while simultaneously dispatching his security team to clear traffic routes and ensure an ambulance reached the address. The address he had tried to trace 6 years ago, after Naomi had abruptly resigned from his company and disappeared without a word. 6 years. A 5-year-old boy. The math wasn't difficult. If you've ever had a moment when your entire life changed in an instant, hit that like button. Sometimes the most important calls we receive come when we least expect them, from people we never knew existed. 20 minutes later, Reed arrived at the apartment complex just as paramedics were loading Naomi Parker into an ambulance. A small boy with unruly dark hair and startlingly familiar gray eyes stood watching, clutching a worn teddy bear to his chest. "Elijah!" Reed approached cautiously, not wanting to frighten the child further. The boy looked up, studying Reed with an intensity that seemed beyond his years. "Are you the man from the phone?" "Yes, I'm Reed." He deliberately omitted his last name, unsure how much the boy knew. "How's your mom?" "They said her blood sugar is really low. They're taking her to the hospital." Elijah's composure was remarkable for a 5-year-old, though his lower lip trembled slightly. "I need to go with her." "Of course." Reed nodded to the paramedics, who were waiting for confirmation. "I'll follow in my car." As the ambulance pulled away, Reed found himself standing in the rain, staring at the modest apartment building. For 6 years, he had wondered what had happened. Why Naomi, the woman he had been planning to propose to, had suddenly walked away without explanation. One day they were discussing their future. The next, she had resigned from Westbrook Innovations with a brief email and disappeared completely. Now, a 5-year-old boy with his eyes provided an answer he had never considered. At Westbrook Memorial Hospital, renamed after Reed's substantial donation 3 years earlier, Naomi Parker was stabilized quickly. Severe hypoglycemia, the doctors explained. She had apparently missed a meal while fighting off a virus, a dangerous combination for someone with type 1 diabetes. Reed sat in the waiting room, watching Elijah color quietly in a book provided by a nurse. The boy hadn't asked why the stranger was still here, hadn't questioned Reed's authority when he'd handled the admission paperwork or spoken with the doctors. He seemed to accept Reed's presence with the simple logic of childhood. Reed had answered his call for help, therefore Reed was a helper. If only adult relationships were so straightforward. "Mr. Westbrook?" A nurse appeared at his elbow, her eyes wide with the recognition that often accompanied his name. Ms. Parker is awake now. She's asking for her son. Reed nodded. Elijah, your mom's awake. Let's go see her. The boy gathered his things quickly, relief evident in every movement. As they walked down the corridor, Reed felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. What would Naomi say when she saw him? Would she explain why she had left? Why she had kept this child, his child, he was now certain. A secret from him. They reached the door to her room, and Elijah rushed forward. Reed hung back, watching through the doorway as the boy climbed onto the bed and was enveloped in his mother's arms. Naomi looked thinner than he remembered, her once vibrant face now lined with the fatigue of single parenthood. But her eyes were the same, deep amber that had once looked at him with such warmth. Those eyes now widened in shock as they registered his presence in the doorway. Reed! Her voice was barely a whisper. Hello, Naomi. He remained where he was, not wanting to intrude on their space. Elijah called me. Your phone service was out. Confusion crossed her face, followed quickly by understanding and then something like dread. Elijah, honey, how did you find Mr. Westbrook's number? It was in your phone, the boy explained, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. The one that said, do not call. But I had to, Mom. You wouldn't wake up. Naomi closed her eyes briefly, her arms tightening around her son. You did the right thing, baby. You were very brave. She looked back at Reed, her expression guarded. Thank you for helping him. Of course. Reed hesitated, then added, he's a remarkable boy. Something flickered across Naomi's face. Pride, fear, resignation. Yes, he is. A nurse appeared beside Reed. Ms. Parker needs to rest now, and we need to complete some paperwork for her discharge tomorrow. Can I stay with Mom? Elijah asked, his small face creased with worry. I'm afraid not, sweetheart, the nurse said kindly. Hospital policy, but you can come back first thing in the morning. Reed saw the panic rising in the boy's eyes and made a split-second decision. Elijah can stay with me tonight. I live nearby. Absolutely not, Naomi said sharply, then softened her tone at her son's startled look. I mean, that's very kind, but Elijah has his grandmother nearby. She can watch him. Grandma's in Florida, Mom, Elijah reminded her. Remember? She won't be back until next week. Naomi's face fell. Reed could see her calculating options. None of them good. A night in foster care. A distant acquaintance. A colleague who barely knew her son. Naomi, Reed said quietly, stepping into the room. We have things to discuss, you and I. But right now, Elijah needs somewhere safe to stay. I have plenty of room, and I promise he'll be well cared for. Their eyes met over the boy's head, years of unspoken history between them. Reed saw the moment she relented, her shoulders sagging slightly. Okay, she said finally, but I want to talk to you first. Alone. She turned to her son. Elijah, can you go with the nice nurse for a few minutes? She'll get you a snack from the cafeteria. Once they were alone, the room seemed smaller, charged with tension. Naomi adjusted her hospital bed to a sitting position, gathering her strength. He's yours, she said without preamble. I assume you've figured that out. Reed nodded, his suspicion confirmed yet still somehow shocking to hear aloud. Why didn't you tell me? Naomi looked away, pain etching lines around her mouth. I was going to. That day I came to your office to surprise you with the news. Reed's brow furrowed in confusion. What day? You never came to tell me anything. You just disappeared. I was there, Reed. Her voice was quiet but firm. 6 years ago, March 15th. I had just found out I was pregnant that morning. I was so excited, so nervous. I thought you'd be happy. I thought we were building something real. The date struck him with sudden clarity. March 15th. The day Westbrook Innovations had secured its first major international contract. The day everything had changed for his company. I remember that day, he said slowly. We were celebrating the Singapore deal. Yes, you were. Bitterness crept into her tone. I saw exactly how you were celebrating. Reed's mind raced back, trying to piece together what she might have seen. The champagne toast in the conference room. The executives congratulating each other. The press conference announcing the deal. And then, with sickening clarity, he remembered. Victoria Chun, the head of international relations, had kissed him in his office after everyone else had left. A celebratory kiss that had meant nothing to him, that he had pulled away from almost immediately. A meaningless moment he had forgotten entirely until this very second. Naomi, he said, realization dawning. Did you see Victoria kiss me that day? The flash of pain across her face was answer enough. I saw more than a kiss, Reed. I saw you with your arms around her. Saw her pressed against your desk. I didn't need to see more. No, that's not. He stopped, took a breath. It wasn't what you thought. Victoria kissed me, yes. It was inappropriate and unexpected, and I stopped it immediately. It meant nothing. It meant everything to me, Naomi countered, because in that moment I saw the truth, that I was just another conquest for Reed Westbrook. That while I was dreaming about building a family with you, you were already moving on to the next beautiful executive. That's not true, Reed insisted, frustration building. Victoria meant nothing to me. You were everything. Was I? Naomi's gaze was steady now, challenging. You never once mentioned a future with children. Every time I brought up family, you changed the subject to your company's growth, your 5-year plan, your global expansion. I was already afraid you wouldn't want our baby. Seeing you with her just confirmed what I already suspected, that I was temporary in your life. Reed felt as if the ground were shifting beneath him. All these years, he had wondered what he had done wrong, why the woman he loved had vanished without a word. Now he understood that a single misinterpreted moment, combined with his own failure to communicate his feelings, had cost him 6 years with his son. You should have talked to me, he said finally. You should have given me the chance to explain, to be part of his life. Maybe, she conceded, but I was 26, pregnant, heartbroken, and terrified. I made the choice I thought was best for my child. Naomi's gaze was steady. I didn't want him to be an afterthought in his father's busy life, or worse, resented as an obstacle to your goals. If you've ever made a decision based on what you thought you saw rather than what was actually happening, comment below. Sometimes the stories we tell ourselves can change the course of our lives, and the lives of those we love. Reed wanted to argue, to defend himself, but the truth was, she might have been right. The man he had been 6 years ago had been obsessed with his company's growth, with proving himself to the world. Would he have embraced fatherhood then? Or would he have seen it as a complication, a distraction from his ambitions? Does he know about me? He asked instead. He knows his father is someone who wasn't ready to be a parent. That's all. She looked down at her hands. I've never spoken badly of you. I just didn't speak of you at all. Reed absorbed this, trying to imagine growing up without any knowledge of one's father. He had lost his own parents young, but at least he'd had memories, photographs, stories. Elijah had none of that. I'd like to know him, he said, surprising himself with the truth of it. If you'll allow it. Naomi studied him, searching for something in his face. Why? What's changed? It was a fair question. What had changed? He was still the same driven, work-obsessed CEO. His company was still his primary focus. He still lived alone by choice, in a penthouse designed for a single occupant. And yet, something had shifted in the hours since he'd heard that small voice on the phone. Something fundamental that he couldn't quite name. I don't know, he admitted. But when he called me today, when I heard how scared he was, I just knew I needed to help. Not as some abstract good deed, but because it mattered. He mattered. Naomi's expression softened slightly. That's a start, I suppose. She sighed, fatigue evident in every line of her body. You can take him tonight. But Reed, be careful with him. He's not a business acquisition or a project. He's a little boy who's had a very frightening day. I understand. Reed hesitated, then added, for what it's worth, you've done an amazing job with him. He's poised, articulate, brave. That's all you. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Not all me. He has your analytical mind. And your stubbornness. When Elijah returned, clutching a pudding cup and looking exhausted, Reed felt a strange new protectiveness wash over him. This child, his child, had faced an adult's emergency with remarkable courage. Now it was Reed's turn to be brave. Ready for an adventure, Elijah? He asked, keeping his tone light. Your mom needs to rest tonight, so you're going to stay at my place. It has a pretty amazing view of the city. Elijah looked to his mother for confirmation. At her nod, he turned back to Reed. Do you have any books? Mom always reads me a story before bed. I'm sure we can find some, Reed promised, making a mental note to have his assistant arrange for a selection of children's books to be delivered immediately. And maybe we can get pizza for dinner? The boy's face brightened slightly. With pepperoni? Absolutely with pepperoni. As they prepared to leave, Elijah hugged his mother fiercely. I'll be back tomorrow, Mom. First thing. I know you will, brave boy. Naomi kissed his forehead, then looked up at Reed. Take care of him. The words carried weight beyond their simple meaning. Take care of him. Not just tonight, but perhaps. Reed pushed the thought aside. One step at a time. I will, he promised. The drive to Reed's penthouse was quiet. Elijah gazing out the window at the city lights with wide eyes. Reed found himself stealing glances at the boy's profile, noting the shape of his nose, Naomi's, the set of his jaw, definitely Reed's, the thoughtful furrow of his brow, a perfect blend of them both. Your car is really nice, Elijah said finally, breaking the silence. Mom and I take the bus mostly. Sometimes we get a taxi for special occasions. Reed felt an unexpected pang. While he had been amassing billions, his son had been riding public transportation. While he had been acquiring companies and properties around the globe, Naomi had been raising their child in a modest two-bedroom apartment. The bus can be very efficient, he said, unsure how to respond, and better for the environment than everyone driving separate cars. Elijah nodded seriously. That's what Mom says too. She says we should leave a small carbon footprint. When they arrived at Westbrook Tower, Elijah's eyes grew even wider. The sleek glass building rose 60 stories above the city, its top floors illuminated against the night sky. You live here? He asked, awe evident in his voice. At the top, Reed confirmed, leading him through the private entrance to his executive elevator. I can see the whole city from my windows. The penthouse, when they entered it, struck Reed suddenly as cold and impersonal through a child's eyes. The minimalist design, the monochromatic color scheme, the absence of any personal photographs or mementos. It was the home of a man who lived in his head, not his heart. Wow, Elijah said, but his enthusiasm seemed muted as he took in the stark space. It's really big. Yes, it is. Reed felt oddly self-conscious. Too big for one person, really? Don't you get lonely? The question, so direct and innocent, caught Reed off guard. Did he get lonely? He was surrounded by people all day, executives, assistants, employees, clients. His schedule was packed from dawn until well past dusk. He had dinner reservations at the city's finest restaurants weeks in advance. But lonely? The word had never occurred to him. I stay very busy, he said finally. With work. Elijah accepted this with a child's easy adaptability. Mom works a lot too, but she always makes time for me. Another pang, sharper this time. Reed pushed it aside and showed Elijah to the guest room, where his assistant had indeed arranged for children's books, pajamas, and even a stuffed animal to appear as if by magic. Over pepperoni pizza, ordered from the city's most exclusive Italian restaurant, which didn't typically offer delivery but made an exception for Reed Westbrook, they established a tentative rapport. Reed discovered that Elijah was in kindergarten, loved dinosaurs, and could already read simple books. Mom taught me early, he explained proudly. What do you do at your job? Elijah asked, pizza sauce smudged adorably on his chin. Reed considered how to explain his work to a 5-year-old. I help make computers and phones that connect people all over the world. Like Mom's phone that I used to call you? Exactly like that. Reed smiled, struck by the simplicity of the connection. Our company makes the technology that helps people communicate. That's important, Elijah said seriously. Mom says communication is the most important thing in relationships. Reed felt something twist in his chest. If only he and Naomi had communicated better 6 years ago. If only she had confronted him about what she'd seen instead of disappearing. If only he had made his feelings clearer, had shown her that she was more than just another relationship to him. Your mom is very wise, he said softly. Subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison if you believe that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes from the simplest sources. Like the words of a child who sees the world with perfect clarity. After dinner, bath time proved to be an unexpected challenge. Reed's sleek, minimalist bathroom had never been used by a child, and soon water splashed everywhere as Elijah enthusiastically played with the few bath toys Reed's assistant had managed to procure on short notice. Mom usually sings the rubber ducky song, Elijah informed him, squeezing a yellow duck to make it squeak. I'm afraid I don't know that one, Reed admitted, kneeling awkwardly beside the tub in his $1,000 suit pants. That's okay. I can teach you. And with the unself-conscious confidence of childhood, Elijah launched into a slightly off-key rendition of Rubber Ducky, complete with splashing sound effects. By the time they moved to bedtime stories, Reed's shirt was soaked, his hair disheveled, and his heart fuller than it had been in years. Sitting on the edge of the guest bed, reading Where the Wild Things Are with all the voices Elijah insisted were necessary, he felt something shift inside him. A wall crumbling, a door opening to a room he hadn't known existed. One more story? Elijah pleaded when they reached the end, his eyes already heavy with sleep. Just a short one, Reed agreed, unable to refuse those gray eyes so like his own. Then you need to sleep. We're going to see your mom first thing in the morning. As Elijah finally drifted off, clutching the new stuffed dinosaur Reed's assistant had somehow procured at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, Reed found himself lingering in the doorway, watching the gentle rise and fall of his son's chest. His son. The words still felt foreign, miraculous. He had missed so much. First words, first steps, first day of school. All the moments that could never be recaptured. Gone because of a misunderstanding and his own failure to make his intentions clear to Naomi. But perhaps it wasn't too late to be part of Elijah's future. Reed retreated to his home office, mind racing with possibilities and complications. His life wasn't structured for fatherhood. His schedule, his commitments, his global travel, none of it accommodated a child's needs. And yet, the thought of returning to his previous existence, of knowing his son was out there but not being part of his life, felt suddenly unbearable. He picked up his phone, hesitated, then dialed his executive assistant. Margaret, I need you to clear my schedule for the rest of the week, and reschedule the Tokyo meetings for next month. Also, I need you to find me the best family law attorney in the city, not for litigation, for consultation. After hanging up, Reed moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city he had helped shape. Somewhere out there was the life he could have had, a life with Naomi and Elijah, a family rather than just an empire. He had lost that possibility through a misunderstanding and his own failure to prioritize what truly mattered. But perhaps it wasn't too late to build something new. Morning came too quickly, with Elijah bouncing into Reed's room at 6 a.m., fully dressed and eager to see his mother. Reed, who typically woke at 5 for his morning workout, had slept fitfully, his dreams filled with images of what might have been. Is it time to go yet? Elijah asked for the third time as Reed tried to coax him into eating breakfast. Mom will be waiting. The hospital won't discharge her until at least 9, Reed explained patiently. And she needs her rest. We'll go soon, I promise. When they finally arrived at the hospital, Elijah raced ahead to his mother's room while Reed hung back, suddenly uncertain of his welcome. He had spent the night caring for their son. Yes, but that didn't erase 6 years of absence, even if that absence hadn't been his choice. From the doorway, he watched their reunion. Elijah chattering excitedly about the penthouse, the view, the pizza, while Naomi listened with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She looked better this morning. Some color returned to her cheeks, but still fragile in a way that made Reed's chest tighten. "Reed took me to the very top of his building, Mom. You can see everything from up there. And we had pizza and he read me 3 stories, and he didn't even know the Rubber Ducky song, but I taught him and—" "Slow down, sweetheart." Naomi laughed, running a hand through her son's unruly hair. "I'm glad you had fun, but remember to breathe between sentences." Her eyes met Reed's over Elijah's head, a silent question in them. Had it been okay? Had their son been happy? Had Reed managed this unexpected responsibility? He nodded slightly, hoping to reassure her. Then, gathering his courage, he stepped into the room. "The doctor says you can be discharged in about an hour," he said. "I've arranged for a car to take you both home." "That's not necessary," Naomi began, but Reed shook his head. "Please, let me do this. It's the least I can do." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you. And I was hoping—" He hesitated, aware of Elijah's curious gaze bouncing between them. "I was hoping we could talk. When you're feeling better, of course." "About what?" Her tone was guarded, protective. "About everything. About what happened 6 years ago. About Elijah." Reed met her gaze directly. "About how we move forward from here." Naomi's expression softened slightly. "I suppose we do need to talk. Can I go back to Reed's house again?" Elijah asked suddenly, looking between his parents with hopeful eyes. "He has a telescope. He said we could look at the stars next time." Next time. The simple phrase hung in the air between them, laden with possibility and complication. "We'll see, sweetheart," Naomi said carefully. "Right now, let's focus on getting home." If you've ever had a moment when you realized that what you thought you wanted wasn't what you truly needed, hit that like button. Sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our biggest challenges. The ride to Naomi's apartment was quiet, Elijah having fallen asleep against his mother's shoulder in the back of the luxury SUV Reed had arranged. Reed sat across from them, struck by the tableau they presented. The family he might have had, the life he had missed. "He's extraordinary," Reed said softly, breaking the silence. "You've done an amazing job with him." Naomi's arms tightened slightly around their sleeping son. "He's my whole world. I understand that now." Reed hesitated, then continued. "Naomi, about what happened 6 years ago." "Not now," she interrupted gently, glancing down at Elijah. "Not in front of him, even if he's asleep." Reed nodded, respecting her boundary. "When then?" "I have so much I want to say, to explain." She studied him, her amber eyes searching his face for something. Sincerity, perhaps, or the capacity for change. "Give me a few days to recover, to process all this. Then we can talk." "Thank you." The words felt inadequate for the opportunity she was offering. Would it be all right if I saw Elijah again before then? Perhaps this weekend." Naomi considered this, her expression thoughtful. "He clearly enjoyed being with you, and he'll have questions now about who you are, why you're suddenly in our lives." "What will you tell him?" "The truth," she said simply. "A version appropriate for a 5-year-old, but the truth nonetheless. That you're his father, that there was a misunderstanding between us, and that you didn't know about him until now." Reed nodded, grateful for her fairness despite everything. And then we see where it goes." Naomi's gaze was steady. "But Reed, I need to be clear about something. If you're going to be in his life, it has to be consistently. He's 5 years old. He doesn't understand corporate mergers or global expansion or quarterly earnings. He understands when someone shows up for him and when they don't." "I understand." Reed met her gaze directly. "I want to be in his life, Naomi, in whatever capacity you'll allow. These past 24 hours have changed something in me. I can't explain it fully yet, but I know I can't go back to not knowing him." As the car pulled up to Naomi's apartment building, Elijah stirred, blinking sleepily. "Are we home?" "Yes, sweetheart," Naomi confirmed, helping him sit up. "Time to go inside." Reed walked them to their door, carrying the small overnight bag his assistant had packed for Elijah. The apartment, when Naomi unlocked it, was modest but warm, colorful artwork, clearly Elijah's, adorned the walls, family photos covered the refrigerator, and well-loved toys were neatly organized in bins along one wall. It was everything his penthouse wasn't: lived-in, personal, a home rather than just a residence. "Thank you again," Naomi said as they reached the doorway. "For everything." "No thanks needed." Reed knelt to Elijah's level. "It was wonderful meeting you, Elijah. Thank you for calling me when your mom needed help." The boy studied him with those eerily familiar gray eyes. "Are you going to come back?" Reed glanced up at Naomi, seeking permission. At her slight nod, he smiled at his son. "Yes, I'd like to, if that's okay with you." "It's okay," Elijah confirmed seriously. "Next time you can teach me how to use the telescope." "It's a date." Reed stood, his heart lighter than it had been in years. "Take care of your mom, okay?" As he walked back to his waiting car, Reed felt something he hadn't experienced in a very long time: hope. Not the calculated optimism of a business venture or the satisfaction of a successful acquisition, but genuine hope for a future different from the one he had planned. A future that included a small boy with his eyes and a woman he had never truly stopped loving. 3 days later, Reed sat in a small cafe 2 blocks from Naomi's apartment, his usual confidence notably absent as he waited for her to arrive. He had spent the intervening time reorganizing his schedule, consulting with his executive team about reducing his travel commitments, and researching everything from child development to co-parenting arrangements. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Reed Westbrook was prioritizing something above his company. When Naomi entered, looking stronger than she had in the hospital, but still carrying the weight of single motherhood in the slight slump of her shoulders, Reed stood immediately. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling out her chair. "How are you feeling?" "Better," she said, settling across from him. "My blood sugar is stable again, and Elijah has appointed himself my personal health monitor. He reminds me to check my levels every 2 hours." Reed smiled, picturing their son's serious expression as he performed this duty. "He's remarkably responsible for his age." "He's had to be." There was no accusation in her tone, just a statement of fact. "When it's just the two of you, you both have to step up." Reed nodded, accepting this truth. "Naomi, about what happened 6 years ago." "I think I owe you an apology," she interrupted, surprising him. "I should have confronted you about what I saw. I should have given you a chance to explain. Running away it was the easy choice, not the right one." "No," Reed shook his head firmly. "The fault was mine. I never made it clear how important you were to me. I was so focused on the company, on proving myself, that I didn't show you what was in my heart." He took a deep breath. "What you saw that day with Victoria, it wasn't what it looked like. She kissed me, yes, but it was one-sided and unwelcome. I ended it immediately." "I believe you," Naomi said quietly. "I think I knew even then that there was more to the story, but I was young, scared, and pregnant. It was easier to believe the worst and walk away than to fight for something I wasn't sure you even wanted." "I wanted it," Reed admitted. "I wanted you. I just didn't know how to balance that want with everything else in my life. And I never imagined having a child then. But now that I've met him, now that I know he exists." He trailed off, struggling to articulate the seismic shift in his priorities. "He changes everything," Naomi finished for him, a small smile playing at her lips. "I know. He did the same for me." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 6 lost years between them. "What happens now?" Naomi finally asked. "You have a multinational corporation to run. A life that doesn't exactly accommodate school pickups and chicken pox and science projects." "I'm making changes," Reed said simply. "I've already restructured my schedule, delegated more to my executive team, and canceled non-essential travel for the next 3 months. I want to be part of Elijah's life, Naomi. Whatever that looks like, however we need to arrange it." She studied him, searching for signs of insincerity or impulsiveness. "And when the novelty wears off, when board meetings conflict with soccer games, when shareholders demand more of your time. Then I'll make choices, Reed said firmly. Better choices than I made 6 years ago. I've built an empire, Naomi. But what's the point of it if I miss what really matters? Something softened in her expression. He asked about you this morning. Wanted to know if you were really his dad. Reed's heart skipped a beat. What did you tell him? The truth. That you're his father, that we had a misunderstanding before he was born, and that you didn't know about him until now. Naomi traced the rim of her coffee cup with one finger. He had a lot of questions. Why you live in such a big building. Why you make phones. If you like dinosaurs. Reed smiled despite the lump in his throat. And does he? How did he take it? He's 5, Reed. To him, it's simple. You're his dad. You helped when he called. And you promised to show him your telescope. Naomi's eyes met his. Children are remarkably adaptable. It's adults who complicate things. When can I see him again? He has kindergarten until 3 tomorrow. You could pick him up, spend some time with him before dinner. She hesitated. If that works with your schedule. I'll be there, Reed said immediately. My schedule will work around this, not the other way around. Naomi nodded, seeming satisfied with his answer. There's something else we need to discuss. Something practical. Of course. Child support. She straightened slightly, her expression becoming more businesslike. I've never asked for anything and we've managed fine. But if you're going to be in his life, you should contribute financially to his upbringing. Absolutely, Reed agreed without hesitation. I'll have my lawyers draw up. No lawyers, Naomi cut in. No legal teams or complicated arrangements. Just a straightforward agreement between us. I don't want your billions, Reed. I just want Elijah to have the opportunities he deserves. Reed studied her face, struck again by her integrity. Many women would have sued for child support years ago, especially from someone with his resources. Many would be demanding back payments, trust funds, extravagant compensation for years of single parenting. But not Naomi. Never Naomi. Whatever you think is fair, he said finally. But I want to set up a college fund for him as well. And perhaps we could discuss his schooling. There are excellent private academies that might challenge him more than one step at a time, Naomi interrupted gently. Let's focus on building a relationship first. The rest will follow. Reed nodded, accepting her wisdom. You're right. As usual. A small smile touched her lips. I've had 6 years of practice making decisions for him. It might take some getting used to sharing that responsibility. I'm a quick learner, Reed promised. As they parted outside the cafe, an awkward moment hung between them. Not quite friends, no longer lovers, not yet comfortable co-parents. Reed resisted the urge to touch her, to bridge the physical gap that mirrored the emotional one. Tomorrow at 3, Naomi confirmed. Sunshine Kindergarten on Maple Street. He'll be the one with the dinosaur backpack. I'll be there, Reed promised again. Thank you, Naomi, for this chance. She nodded, her expression unreadable. Don't thank me yet. Being a parent is the hardest job you'll ever have. And unlike your company, you can't delegate the difficult parts. If you've ever had to rebuild trust after it was broken, or find your way back to someone who matters to you, share your thoughts in the comments. The hardest journeys often lead to the most meaningful destinations. The next day, Reed arrived at Sunshine Kindergarten 20 minutes early, parking his Bentley among the modest sedans and minivans of other parents. He had deliberately dressed down, jeans and a sweater instead of his usual bespoke suit, and left his security detail behind. Today wasn't about Reed Westbrook, Billionaire CEO. It was about Reed, Elijah's father, showing up for the first time. As children began streaming out of the cheerful yellow building, Reed scanned the small faces anxiously. Then he spotted him. A tiny figure with a disproportionately large green dinosaur backpack, dark hair falling across his forehead as he carefully navigated the steps. Elijah, Reed called, waving slightly. The boy's head snapped up, his eyes widening in recognition. For a heart-stopping moment, Reed feared he might not come over, might not want this strange new father in his life. Then Elijah broke into a run, weaving between other children until he reached Reed's side. "You came!" he exclaimed, bouncing slightly on his toes. "Mom said you might, but I wasn't sure. I promised, didn't I?" Reed knelt to his level. "And I always keep my promises. Always." Elijah's expression turned serious, evaluating this claim. "From now on," Reed amended, recognizing the importance of honesty. "Always from now on." This seemed to satisfy Elijah. "Can we go see your telescope now?" Reed laughed, surprised by the directness. "How about we get ice cream first? Then we can go to my place and look at the telescope." "Chocolate ice cream? Any flavor you want." As they walked hand in hand to a nearby ice cream parlor, Reed having decided the Bentley could wait, he found himself bombarded with questions. Why was his building so tall? Did he know the people who lived on the other floors? How did telescopes work? Did he like T-Rex or Triceratops better? Had he ever seen a real dinosaur bone? Reed answered each question patiently, marveling at the rapid-fire curiosity of his son's mind. This, he realized, was what he had missed for 6 years. Not just milestones like first steps or first words, but the everyday wonder of a child discovering the world. Over ice cream cones, chocolate for Elijah, vanilla for Reed, the questions turned more personal. "Mom says you're my dad," Elijah stated, chocolate smeared across his chin. "Yes, I am," Reed confirmed, heart racing despite his outward calm. "But you didn't know about me until I called you." "That's right." Elijah considered this, licking his ice cream thoughtfully. "Were you sad when you found out you missed my birthdays?" The question, so innocent yet so profound, caught Reed off guard. "Yes," he said honestly. "Very sad. I would have liked to be there for all of them." "That's okay," Elijah said with a child's easy forgiveness. "You can come to my next one. I'll be 6 in April. Mom usually makes a dinosaur cake." "I'd like that very much," Reed said, swallowing past the lump in his throat. "Do you have a dad?" Elijah asked next, switching topics with dizzying speed. "I did. He died when I was young." "That's sad." Elijah's face fell momentarily. "Did he teach you things before he died?" Reed thought back to his own father, a hard-working man who had sacrificed everything to give his son opportunities he'd never had. "Yes, he taught me a lot. How to work hard. How to solve problems. How to build things." "Will you teach me things too?" "Absolutely," Reed promised. "Whatever you want to learn." Elijah beamed, ice cream forgotten for a moment. "I want to learn everything." Later, at the penthouse, Reed showed Elijah how to use the telescope, explaining in simple terms how it magnified distant objects. Though it was still daylight and they couldn't see stars yet, Elijah was fascinated by the view of the city, pointing out landmarks and asking questions about buildings Reed had never really noticed despite seeing them every day. "That's where Mom works," Elijah said, pointing to a nondescript office building in the distance. "She helps people get jobs." Reed adjusted the telescope slightly. "Your mom is very good at helping people. She helped Mrs. Rodriguez get a job at the grocery store, and now Mrs. Rodriguez gives us free apples sometimes." Elijah looked up from the telescope. "Do you help people get jobs too?" "In a way," Reed said, thinking about the thousands of people employed by Westbrook Innovations. "My company creates jobs for lots of people." "That's good," Elijah declared with the simple moral certainty of childhood. "Mom says the most important thing is to be kind and help others." Reed felt a twinge of something like shame. When was the last time he had thought about his work in terms of helping others, rather than market dominance or profit margins? When had he last considered kindness as a business value? "Your mom is very wise," he said again, making a mental note to reevaluate some of his company's practices. When it was time to take Elijah home, Reed felt an unexpected reluctance to end their time together. These few hours had flown by, filled with small moments of connection that meant more to him than any business deal he'd ever closed. "Can I come back tomorrow?" Elijah asked as they drove to his apartment. "I have to work tomorrow," Reed said regretfully. "But how about Saturday?" We could go to the Natural History Museum. They have real dinosaur bones there. Real ones. Elijah's eyes widened. Promise. Promise. Reed smiled at his son's excitement. And this time, I'll pick you up in the morning so we have the whole day together. At Naomi's apartment, she was waiting with dinner ready. The domestic scene. Naomi in the kitchen, Elijah chattering about his day, struck Reed with a powerful sense of what he had missed. What might have been if not for one misunderstanding and years of silence. He showed me how to use a real telescope, Elijah was telling his mother. And we're going to see dinosaur bones on Saturday. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart, Naomi said, her eyes meeting Reed's over their son's head. Did you thank Reed for the ice cream and telescope lesson? Thank you, Elijah said dutifully, then brightened. Oh, I almost forgot. He dashed to his room, returning moments later with a drawing. I made this for you. It's us looking at stars. Reed accepted the crayon drawing, his throat tight with emotion. Two stick figures, one tall, one small, stood beside what was clearly meant to be a telescope. Above them, multicolored stars filled the sky. It's perfect, he said, meaning it completely. I'm going to put it in my office. Your work office? Elijah asked, surprised. Absolutely. Right where I can see it every day. As Reed prepared to leave, Naomi walked him to the door. He had a good time, she said quietly. Thank you for that. I'm the one who should be thanking you, Reed replied. For today. For raising him to be who he is. For everything. Naomi studied him for a moment. You're different with him than I expected. Different how? More present. More engaged. Less the CEO, more just a dad. She shrugged slightly. It suits you. The compliment warmed him unexpectedly. I'm trying. This is all new to me, but I want to get it right. There is no getting it right in parenting, Naomi said with a small smile. There's just showing up, doing your best, and loving them through the mistakes. Theirs and yours. Reed nodded, absorbing this wisdom. Saturday morning, then? For the museum. He'll be ready, probably with a list of dinosaur facts to test you on. As Reed drove back to his penthouse, the crayon drawing carefully placed on the passenger seat, he felt a strange mixture of joy and regret. Joy for the connection he was building with his son. Regret for all the time they had lost. But perhaps regret was a luxury he couldn't afford now. Perhaps what mattered was making the most of the time they had going forward. Back in his office, Reed cleared a space on the wall directly across from his desk and carefully taped Elijah's drawing at eye level. Then he sat down and began composing an email to his executive team, outlining a new initiative for Westbrook Innovations. One focused on family-friendly policies and community support. It was time for his company to reflect the values he wanted his son to see in him. The next few weeks established a rhythm to their new family dynamic. Reed spent every Saturday with Elijah, their outings becoming the highlight of his week. They visited museums, parks, the zoo, each experience a revelation as Reed saw the world through his son's eyes. He began joining them for dinner twice a week, gradually becoming more comfortable in Naomi's modest apartment than in his own luxurious penthouse. Professionally, Reed delegated more responsibility to his executive team, restructured his workday to end by 5 p.m., and declined non-essential business travel. For the first time in his career, Westbrook Innovations was not his sole focus, and surprisingly, the company continued to thrive without his constant attention. But the real transformation was happening within Reed himself. The driven, sometimes ruthless businessman was giving way to something more balanced, more human. He found himself considering the impact of his decisions not just on profit margins but on people's lives. He began to value time differently, measuring it not in quarters and fiscal years but in moments of connection and growth. One evening, after Elijah had gone to bed, Reed and Naomi sat at her kitchen table, sharing a bottle of wine and discussing their son's upcoming school science fair. He wants to build a model of the solar system, Naomi said. With you. He specifically asked if you could help because, and I quote, Dad knows about space stuff from his telescope. Reed smiled at the casual way Elijah had begun referring to him as Dad in recent weeks. I'd be honored. Though I should warn you, my knowledge of astronomy is pretty basic. It's not about the accuracy of the planets, Naomi pointed out. It's about the time together, the building of something. Reed nodded, understanding the metaphor. We are building something, aren't we? The three of us. Something I never expected. Yes, Naomi agreed softly. We are. A comfortable silence fell between them, different from the tense, charged silences of their early reunions. Reed studied her profile in the soft kitchen light, noting how the years had added character to her beauty, how motherhood had given her a quiet strength he found increasingly attractive. Naomi, he began, then hesitated. I've been thinking a lot about what happened 6 years ago, about what I lost because I didn't make my priorities clear. She turned to face him fully. And what have you concluded? That I was a fool, he said simply. That I had everything that mattered right in front of me, and I was too focused on building an empire to see it. We were both young, Naomi said, her voice gentle. You were building something important to you. I was finding my own path, and we both made mistakes. The difference is your mistake came from a place of hurt and protection. Mine came from blindness to what really mattered. Reed reached across the table, hesitating before lightly touching her hand. I've changed, Naomi. Not just for Elijah, though he's been the catalyst. For myself. For what I want my life to mean. She didn't pull away from his touch. And what do you want it to mean? More than acquisitions and market share. More than being the youngest billionaire on some magazine list. His eyes held hers. I want it to mean connection. Family. The kind of success that doesn't show up on a balance sheet. Naomi's expression softened. That's a big change for Reed Westbrook, corporate titan. Reed Westbrook, corporate titan, was lonely in a 60-story tower, he admitted. Reed, Elijah's dad, is happier than he's ever been. Sitting in this kitchen with dinosaur magnets on the refrigerator and a science project to build on Saturday. A smile touched her lips. Elijah has that effect on people. He makes you see what really matters. It's not just Elijah, Reed said quietly. It's you too, Naomi. It's always been you. The words hung between them, honest and vulnerable in a way Reed had never allowed himself to be before. Naomi's eyes widened slightly, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. Reed, I'm not asking for anything, he assured her quickly. I know we're just finding our way as co-parents. I know trust takes time to rebuild. I just wanted you to know. She nodded, her hand turning under his to link their fingers briefly before pulling away. Thank you for telling me, and for being so good with him. It means more than I can say. If you've ever had a second chance at something you thought was lost forever, hit that like button. Sometimes life's greatest gifts come to us only after we've learned the lessons we needed to grow. As spring turned to summer, their carefully constructed co-parenting arrangement began to evolve into something more. Reed found reasons to arrive early for his time with Elijah, to stay late after bringing him home. Family dinners became more frequent, movie nights a regular occurrence. The three of them took a weekend trip to the beach, where Reed built his first-ever sandcastle under Elijah's expert direction. Naomi watched this transformation with cautious optimism. The Reed she was coming to know now was different from the driven young executive she had fallen for 6 years ago. This Reed laughed more easily, listened more attentively, and seemed genuinely content in moments of quiet family time that would have made his younger self restless. One evening in late July, after Elijah had finally fallen asleep following an exciting day at the water park, Reed and Naomi sat on her small balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. He was so happy today, Naomi said, smiling at the memory of their son's joyful shrieks as he splashed down water slides. Thank you for suggesting it. I think I had more fun than he did, Reed admitted. I've never actually been to a water park before. Never. Naomi looked surprised. Even as a kid? Reed shook his head. My father worked 2 jobs. There wasn't time or money for things like that. He smiled ruefully. Ironic that I built all this wealth and still never thought to enjoy something so simple until Elijah came into my life. He's good at showing us what we're missing, Naomi agreed. He's been doing that for me since the day he was born. They fell into comfortable silence, shoulders almost touching as they shared the small space. A warm breeze carried the scent of the potted jasmine Naomi had placed in the corner of the balcony, its sweetness mingling with the distant sounds of the city. Naomi, Reed said finally, turning to face her, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. Her eyes met his, curious but not wary as they once would have been. What is it? Would you consider? That is, I was wondering if you might. He laughed softly at his own uncharacteristic hesitation. I'm not very good at this. At what? A smile played at the corners of her mouth. At asking a woman I care about deeply if she might consider having dinner with me. Just the two of us. Like a date. Naomi's smile widened. Reed Westbrook, are you nervous? Terrified, he admitted. Facing down corporate rivals is nothing compared to asking the mother of my child if she might give me a second chance. She studied him for a long moment, her expression softening. Yes, 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 I'll have dinner with you. Her eyes held his. But Reed, we need to be careful. For Elijah's sake. He's already so attached to you, to this family unit we've been creating. If we try this and it doesn't work. I understand, he said quickly. And I agree completely. Elijah comes first. Always. The dinner date, at a small, intimate restaurant far from Reed's usual power dining establishments, was both familiar and new. They spoke of their shared past, of the 6 years they'd spent apart, and of the future they were cautiously beginning to imagine might include each other. I looked for you, you know, Reed confessed over dessert. After you left, I hired investigators, searched for months. I was careful, Naomi acknowledged. I changed my phone, moved to a different borough, took a job in a completely different industry. I was hurt and scared and determined to protect our baby from what I thought would be rejection. I would never have rejected him, Reed said softly. I might not have been ready, might have been terrified and overwhelmed, but I would never have rejected my own child. I know that now. Naomi reached across the table, taking his hand. I see how you are with him. How natural it is, how much you love him. I was wrong to assume the worst. And I was wrong not to make my feelings for you clearer. Reed's thumb traced circles on her palm. I was so focused on proving myself, on building something significant, that I never told you that you were already the most significant part of my life. Their first kiss, when it came later that night at her door, was both a reunion and a new beginning. Tender, tentative, full of promise and possibility. Stay, she whispered against his lips. Are you sure? I'm sure that I've missed you, she said simply. That despite everything, you've always had a piece of my heart, and that I want to see where this might lead. That night, as they rediscovered each other with the deeper appreciation that comes from loss and recovery, Reed felt a sense of homecoming he had never experienced in his luxurious penthouse. Here, in Naomi's modest apartment, with their son sleeping peacefully down the hall, he had found what all his wealth and success had never been able to provide. A place where he truly belonged. In the morning, Elijah's reaction to finding Reed at the breakfast table was one of simple acceptance. Are you going to have breakfast with us every day now? He asked, climbing onto his chair. Reed and Naomi exchanged glances, both suppressing smiles. Not every day, Reed answered carefully, but maybe sometimes. Okay. Elijah nodded, apparently satisfied with this arrangement. Can we have pancakes? And so began a new chapter for the three of them. Reed didn't move in immediately. They were careful to take things slowly, mindful of Elijah's adjustment. But he spent more and more nights at their apartment. He kept his penthouse but found himself thinking of it less as home and more as simply a place he owned. By Thanksgiving, they had settled into a family rhythm that felt both miraculous and natural. Reed had transformed one of the penthouse's spare bedrooms into a space for Elijah, complete with dinosaur wallpaper and a ceiling painted with stars that glowed in the dark. Naomi had gradually allowed herself to trust again, to believe in the changes she saw in Reed, and to open her heart to the possibility of the family she had once dreamed they might become. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after Elijah's fateful phone call, Reed proposed, not with a grand gesture or extravagant display, but quietly in their kitchen after Elijah had gone to bed, having helped set out cookies for Santa. "I had planned something more elaborate," he admitted, holding out the ring box. "But sitting there tonight, watching you and Elijah hang stockings, I couldn't wait another moment to ask you to be my wife." Tears shimmered in Naomi's eyes as she opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Is that a yes?" Reed asked, his usual confidence giving way to vulnerable hope. "It's a yes," she confirmed, slipping the ring onto her finger. "It's always been yes, Reed, even when I was too hurt and scared to admit it." Their wedding the following spring was intimate and joyful. Elijah, now 6, served as best man, solemnly carrying the rings with an expression of such importance that it brought smiles to every face in the small gathering. As Reed and Naomi exchanged vows, promising to cherish each other and the family they had created against all odds, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "What extraordinary circumstances have brought together. Let no misunderstanding put asunder." At the reception, Reed pulled his new wife close as they swayed to their first dance. "Did you ever imagine when Elijah made that call that we'd end up here?" he murmured against her hair. "Never," Naomi admitted. "I thought you were my past, not my future. And now," she smiled up at him, love shining in her eyes, "now I know that sometimes the wrong number turns out to be exactly the right one." Across the room, Elijah was demonstrating his dinosaur dance to his grandmother, his face alight with the joy of a child who knows he is deeply loved. As Reed watched his son, their son, he felt a profound gratitude for the desperate call that had reconnected them, for the second chance they had all been given. "He saved us, you know," Reed said softly. "In more ways than one." "He did," Naomi agreed. "But we saved each other too." If the story touched your heart, please subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Remember that sometimes our greatest blessings come from our most challenging moments, and that it's never too late for a new beginning. Share this video with someone who might need to be reminded that second chances are possible, and that love, when it's real, finds a way to bridge even the widest gaps of misunderstanding and time. In the years that followed, Reed Westbrook, once known only for his business acumen and wealth, became equally recognized for his family values and philanthropic work. Westbrook Innovations pioneered industry-leading family leave policies and flexible work arrangements. The Westbrook Family Foundation, established on Elijah's 7th birthday, funded programs supporting single parents and children's education. And in their home, a compromise between Reed's desire for space and Naomi's preference for warmth, a house with a yard where Elijah could play and a telescope on the roof for stargazing. They built the life that one phone call, one brave 5-year-old boy, and one second chance had made possible. A life where what mattered most wasn't what you achieved or acquired, but who you loved and how well you loved them.